You're right, Gangrene UK. You're joining us today for episode 50. I've got Otis and James with me, and we are joined with a very special guest of Connie Carberg, the first female scout in NFL history, and so much more to the Jets. Thanks for coming along, Connie. It's lovely to see you.
Well, my pleasure. Thank you for having me on. I'm so glad we were able to set this up, and for me to be here in Florida and you be in the UK. Amazing, isn't it?
Absolutely. So there will be people who are quite new to the Jets in Europe who may not quite know who you are yet, where I've been aware for a while. I know Otis and James are too, but would you like to just give a little summary about your history with the New York Jets?
Sure, I'd be happy to. And hello to everybody out there. It all started when my father and my uncle, I always played sports growing up. I was a tomboy and played everything. But back then there was no football, no flag, no tackle for women. We played a lot of other sports. But when all of a sudden my father and my uncle became the two team doctors for the New York Titans, who then became the New York Jets. And that was back when I was about 13 and 14 in that age group. And so I said, I started meeting the players and they would be over at the house and this and that. And I said, I got to learn more about it. So I had a neuroscience teacher who came to the games. He was a football coach and he taught me a lot. Walt Michaels, who was the defensive coordinator of Super Bowl III, who played for the Cleveland Browns. He also was the head coach of the Jets when I worked there in the late 70s, early 80s. He was a good friend of my father's. He was always at the house. And so he would teach me a lot about football as well. So I was doing all that, and for some reason, I started holding my own mock drafts. I wish I could tell you why or how, but I did, and it was about 15 or 16. And my first draft, I picked Ron Yary, and in the second round, I took Garrett Ford. Well, Ron Yary turned out to be a great Hall of Famer. Garrett Ford turned out to be a bust. So, I learned quickly that scouting is like shooting, knowledgeable darts. Let's put it that way. You have some ideas, you're pretty sure, but it's still not an exact science. There's lots of errors made now, just like there were back then. So I started doing that. Then the Jets won the Super Bowl in 1969, their only Super Bowl. That was the one that Joe Namath guaranteed. We were 18-point underdogs to the Colts, who were amazing. But we won, and that solidified the AFL. So, of course, I was going crazy. They were always over at the house, whether it was Emerson Boozer, whether it was Namath, whether it was Matt Snell, George Sauer, Don Maynard, because my father had his office connected to the house. And so I just grew up that way. And then I went off to an all-girls college. They didn't have scholarships in sports for girls because Title IX had not come into being yet. But I played basketball for 2 years in Massachusetts at Wheaton College. And then something was missing. So I transferred to the Ohio State University, and that was a really great move. Woody Hayes was a very famous coach, like Nick Saban is now, say, the equivalent. And I started becoming a really big fan of Ohio State, of course. And then one day I took his book, You Win with People. I still have it. And I went over to the Union where they eat, the team. And I waited till Coach Hayes came out. And when he did, I went over, introduced myself, started talking with him, and had him sign the book. And then he said, boy, you really love football and have such a passion. He said, but there's nothing for women right now, but come on over to the stadium. And that's where their offices were. And we'll talk. So I did that. So we talked for a while over at the stadium. And he said, right now, Phyllis George hadn't even started it in the NFL today. There were no women sideline reporters, no women trainers, coaches, scouts. I mean, you name it. It wasn't anybody at that point. But he said, you have such a passion for it and you love it so much. Don't give up on it. Keep doing it. You never know in life where it's leading you. So if you have something that you really love, stay with it. He said, and you are welcome to come to every practice at Ohio State, whether it's open or closed. Talk to the players, talk to the scouts. So I did that. And after I graduated in 74, I was going to teach at my old Babylon High School. And then I was going to coach girls sports. Again, Title IX passed, I think in 72 or 73, and I graduated in 74. And then my father had a 50th birthday party. Charlie Winter was the head coach. I went over and started talking to him. He said, we're building a brand new complex out at Hofstra University in Hempstead. He said, and you have so much love I'd love to see, would you work for the Jets? And I said, oh, yeah, of course I will. I don't care what, if you want me there at 4 a.m., I don't care what you pay me. I don't care about anything. So that was my dream come true. I still lived at home at the time. And then I would work out, but I was the only woman in the building with the players and the coaches. They had a New York office with the business side, but the football side was out on Long Island. And so I was a receptionist and talking to everybody, greeting people. Everybody wanted to come in and see Joe Namath. You know, it didn't matter who you were, whether it was Pele, whether it was Dr. J. I mean, you had people coming in and out all the time. And people, so I was very lucky there. At the same time, I was doing scouting secretarial work. But the only thing is I didn't know how to be a secretary. So this was kind of tough because I didn't remember, there's no computers, there's no cell phones, there's no Google, there's no YouTube, there's nothing. So when I go in and they say, we want you to type something or do something, I go, oh my gosh, I don't know how to do this. And you can't Google it. I don't know the form to write to a general manager. So I had to kind of bluff my way. And on being a secretary, plus we were at the typewriters, the whiteout. But, you know, I was very lucky. The Jets didn't hire me for how many words per minute. They hired me because of my passion for football and that I knew who, when anybody walked in the door, whether they should be seen, not be seen, meet people, not meet people. But it was a very relaxed atmosphere back then. You didn't have security or anything back then. I mean, it was really very family oriented. And then we got another woman that came in to be the head coach's secretary. And then it built from there. So that's how I started working. And then it progressed from there.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's like,
Crazy.
I mean, there's so much more as well, but that's like, yeah, it's inspiring for everybody, not just like women who want to get into sport. But you did it when there was no chance, really.
Never. It's funny. I said there was nobody to look at or to ask about, or it was just something that I loved. And I felt very comfortable talking football. That I wasn't comfortable or had to have a lot of confidence in myself in other ways, but with football, man, that was just my niche for some reason. And I was very lucky. I had a wonderful boss named Mike Hollaback, who was an All-American at Boston College, and he also coached the Patriots for a while. But he really knew our two best drafts were 76 and 77, where we got Marvin Powell and Richard Todd and Wesley Walker and Joe Klecko and Abdul Salam. And I can go through the whole list of in those two drafts alone. And that was before pre-draft physicals. That was before the combine. That was before computers. And you just had reel to study on guys on video. So you had to do that. So you can make a lot of mistakes. And it was 17 rounds back then. Then eventually, a couple of years later, it went to 12 rounds. And of course, now we have 7 rounds. So my second year there, my 1975, Al Ward was the general manager, along with Mike Hollaback. And we got this on the 17th round. They said, Connie, you're making the last draft pick. You pick somebody. So it was still to this day, I'm the only female to ever make a draft pick. Talk about pressure when you're sitting there. But of course, I picked the guy from the Ohio State, Mike Bartosik, a tight end. And then from there, you know, I did more and more grading with films. You would look at films and grade what they did and this kind of stuff, as well as my just regular with the scouts, setting them up and where they were going to go. And then one day we were actually doing the game plan back in the locker room. We're sitting back there. We used to type into these little helmets, the game plan. And they both, Mike Hollaback and Al Ward said, you know, Connie, we want you to do scouting for us. Okay, I said, great, I'd love it. Now, I didn't know that it was that big a deal. They sent me to Ohio State and Boston College and down to the Orange Bowl and some local places, had me grading films and all that type of stuff. But I honestly didn't know that it was that, you know, that huge, because they didn't put it in the paper all over. Only Dick Young, and when I went to Ohio State, they wrote it up. But until my son actually put it into my web, he made a website for me about 12 years ago, Connie Scouts. And he said, Mom, I just want this to be so that everybody knows you were the first one. But who would ever know that social media would just explode the way it has, and all these type of things like what you and I are doing right now.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm so far away and all that kind of stuff. And then, you know, during the pandemic, but it just blew up. And then a young lady asked if she could write the book. And I said, just everything. And I still go up to the Jets for 3 weeks every summer.
Yeah, I think we were talking a while ago. and it was just, I think it was maybe just before the pandemic, and I was asking if you were going up, and you were all set for it. And then obviously
that was the first time in 55 years that I had missed being up at a training camp. And then I did go last year. You couldn't go within 30 feet of the guys because of the rules and stuff, but I still had a great time. Like Rob Carpenter, went to a practice and I was able to sit with family, and Rob Carpenter, who had been a receiver with us at one point, I got to sit with him, and it was just so great listening to his opinion from his wide receiver viewpoint, what was really happening and stuff, because practices today are very different now than they used to be. You know, they used to have 2-a-days, sometimes even 3-a-days, full pads, hitting all the time, you know, everything else. Now, you know, they can't even bring them to the ground. It's one practice a day. It's just a whole different world since the CBA in 2011.
Yeah.
So obviously we talked about getting into scouting, and that's sort of where things sort of developed, and you were really groundbreaking in being in the NFL in that situation. Was there a specific position or college that you like to scout and find players the best from?
Well, yeah, it's funny. At that time, even though I went to Ohio State, after about, I don't think it was right away in 76 or 77, but another 2 years after that, the University of Pittsburgh was just loaded. They had Hugh Green and Ricky Jackson, and they had Matt Cavanaugh. They had Randy McMillan. They were just loaded. So there were, when you did their films, you were writing up. They had, I think, 13 guys drafted that year.
Right.
They were powerful, and so I really enjoyed that. It was hard to get a hold of, because as I said, it was reel to reel. So if you got a tape in on a team, you would look at it, and then you'd have to set it on to another team. And then you would write your reports up. How many tackles did they make, assists, what did you see on them, strong points, weak points, your summary, and all that type of stuff. So it was very, as I said, it was a very different time. I'm saying I love all your jerseys, by the way, behind you. Those are really good.
There's some of your guys up on the one here as well.
Yes, very good.
Yeah, that's pride of place. That was ordered specially to have the 4 guys sign it, so it's signed by all 4 guys with the sack exchange on the top.
Isn't that great? That was an amazing. So we got them like in 76 and 77. In the 6th and 7th round, we got Abdul, who was known as Larry Falk, and became Abdul Salam. And we got Joe Klecko, a 6th round pick, who was like a truck driver from Temple University, who was playing kind of amateur football on the side. Of course, now you couldn't do anything like that, but back in those days, everything was very loose.
Yeah.
And then we got Mark and Marty Lyons in 79. So in those 4 years, you know, we got the entire the sack exchange.
So you touched on one of the greats there, certainly for us, and certainly in defensive end territory. What was it like being the lady that found Mark?
It was amazing. I wish I could say I knew he was going to be as great as he was, but I didn't. He was, when we were doing the Senior Bowl, this is the first time this year that we had done the Senior Bowl in 43 years. And I went down to it. It was really great. As I said, I was so excited because we finally got to coach it again. Last time we coached it, Walt Michaels was the head coach. And Mike Stensrud, who was a defensive lineman, got hurt in an accident, and they needed a replacement. So my boss called and said, find somebody to replace him. Well, most of your 1st and 2nd round picks for defensive line already in the Senior Bowl, as you would see like here, like Fred Smirlis and things like that. So I had to do whatever I could with what reports we had, any films we had, anything we had that I could find on guys that might have been probably drafted like 4th to 7th rounds, anywhere in that area. And I narrowed it down to about 5 guys. And I said, well, now one guy was faster than the rest, but he was from a small school. And the other guys, so I said, how am I going to make this decision? So I decided I'm a big person on passion and interviewing. So I called each guy. Most of the guys, I mean, they're very nice, but it was like, okay, I'll go to the Senior Bowl. When do I have to be there? How, are we there for a whole week? What do you do? Blah, blah, blah. This one person that I called said, get me on the next plane. All I ever wanted to be was an NFL player. I'm ready to play. Get me, and just full of just enthusiasm and passion. I said, wow, I really like this. Let me see who that was. That was Mark Gastineau, and he ran the 4.55 in the 40, and so he had the fastest time. But he was at the small school, East Central Oklahoma. So again, it was very different back in those days to get a guy from a small school. But I chose him. He went down to the Senior Bowl, had a great week of practice. Got defensive MVP of the North, and Marty Lyons got defensive MVP of the South. And we ended up drafting Marty first round, Mark second round. So it was boy, that's why I'm really praying that we can get some really good guys from the Senior Bowl. That's why I was so excited that our coaches get to know these guys, and not just as players, but as people, and their strengths and their weaknesses. And I'm hoping if we can come up with a couple of guys from the Senior Bowl, man, that would be awesome.
Definitely. And over your time drafting and scouting, who would you say your favorite player was? Maybe not the one who did the best in the NFL, but just your personal favorite.
I like them all. So I'm friends with so many of them. I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings. So I as I said, those, the drafts that I was a part of from 75 all the way to 81. My last one was after I got married, and then it was Freeman McNeil's. We took Freeman the pick after Lawrence Taylor that year. Giants were right before us, with the opposite this year. So, but I loved, Wesley Walker was blind in one eye, and he was able to memorize the eye chart and somehow be able to, because I only have one eye, and there's no depth perception. So it is amazing what Wesley Walker did with one eye, playing football, and what a deep threat he was for the Jets for so many years. So I have so many guys that I could go into with stories. They were really a great bunch. I always said I had a really, positive experience, from whether it was Joe Namath, whether it was Emerson Boozer, then all the way through, as I said, with the Sack Exchange, Greg Buttle, Bobby Jackson, Brucey Harper, all those guys. They were really a great bunch of guys.
It's amazing.
So we've got a split in the group now, where some people put more stature on the Senior Bowl coaching over the combine, so some people believe that the Senior Bowl is more important than the combine, versus others that believe that the combine is better. Now, you've obviously scouted throughout, before combine, with a bit of the combine, and then obviously now I'm assuming you probably still do your little follows of the modern combine. How do you rate them, or are they different?
How the Senior Bowl is different. The combine, as I said, is, you're not playing football. You're in shorts, and you can be a great athlete, just like whether it's the drills that they do and the broad jump and stuff. I do love the combine. I really do. And mostly for the interviews, when they said, remember when we drafted Ja'Kai Polite in the third round, but before that they had said what a terrible interview he had. So it was really amazing that the way he fell, and then he's boom out of the league. I think he may have gone with I don't know now, he went to Canada or USFL, but he had fallen out of the league. But whereas the Senior Bowl, you're with the guys every day, and you have a chance to watch both the North and the South squad actually play and actually hit, and then play a game. And then, as I said, plus really get to know them as people. Now, and so it's both for the scouts and the coaching staff, because I think nowadays, much more than when I worked. When I worked, everybody played the basic 4-3 defense. There was no spread offense. Quarterbacks dropped back 3-5-7, had a face or rush. They could be hit. You could hit receivers. Now it's very, very different. So when these guys are looking at these players, again, they're looking at a lot of different things. And as I said, we still make just as many mistakes, even with all the stuff. Everybody has YouTube. Everybody has all the height, weight, and speed. Everybody has the 3-cone and the shuttle and this, and yet you're still going to see the same, probably close to the same amount of busts in the first 2 rounds that you used to see before they had it.
A question for me, sort of following on a little bit, I guess, from that and what you were saying then with Anth. We see a lot of people put a lot of weight into speed, into weight, into power, into everything that they can imagine and measure. There's a lot of skill required to play in the NFL, there's no doubt. But do you think heart and determination and passion can make up for some of the skills deficiencies that some of these guys have. You've got people like Wes Welker that played.
Yes, in my mind, first of all, I'm a real believer in that. Secondly, 40% of the NFL is undrafted. So that tells you that measurables don't make you a superstar. Just because of the height, weight, and speed, there is so much more in the heart that you love of the game, that you want to play that game so much. And if it was taken away from you, you really would be heartbroken. So I think all those things are, as I said, versus just the thing. That's why getting to know them at the Senior Bowl a little bit, the interview, they do the interview, I think, at the combine, but I think it's more, from what I understand, I haven't been there, more groups and fast, you're going 15 minutes here, that kind of thing. So I think with the Senior Bowl, the teams that coach it have a real advantage. And the other thing is the physicals, because some teams value it a lot more than others. And back in the old days, I know we rejected a lot of players that other teams might take. They didn't mind if guys had injuries before. And of course, back in the old days, you didn't recover as well from Achilles or ACLs as you do now. But as I said, now we have to see whether or not, like the Jets have had the last couple of years, a lot of injuries. That's why I get a little worried, like on a Stingley, do I want to take a guy that's already been hurt in college, or one that the doctors say right now? I mean, you can always get hurt. But we just signed Laken Tomlinson, right? And I think he's missed one game in his 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
So now he's coming to us. Let's hope he has that same kind of great luck, or whatever you want to call it, as Mangold did and DeBrick did, compared to all the guys right now that we seem to be losing to injuries.
Yeah.
I do always worry about the injuries. I can remember seeing an interview where it was talking about how the doctors had changed. One year they were focusing on knee injuries, and then the season later everybody got ankle injuries. So then they focused on ankle injuries and everyone went back to knees. It's like, can you not just focus on keeping them completely healthy?
It's really hard, because it's funny, when the old days they thought if you lifted weights it would make you slower. So they did back in the 60s and stuff. Then the weightlifting came in and examining, and the players and all that kind of that type of thing. But and as I said, they're still getting hurt right now. They don't even hit the way they used to. But I was talking at the Hula Bowl with Tim Brown, who was a great wide receiver, right, for many years, a Hall of Famer. And I said, you played? He said, 15 years. I said, did you get hurt much? He said, just once, my second year. I said, well, why do you think you didn't get hurt the remaining 13 years? He said, because he said, I learned how to eat, but he said, more than that. He said, you learn how to fall, how to get when you're hit. He said, right now, this is what he felt, is you're not getting hit. You're getting two-hand touch in practices. Basically, you're not taking the guy to the ground. So your body is not used to it. Now, as soon as you're getting something where you're really going at it, you may be in great shape as a runner or an athlete, but not as a football player. They always say you have to play football to get in football shape. And that's what they believe. Because I don't remember, maybe I'm wrong. I do not remember the amount of torn pecs, obliques, soft tissue, ACLs. You would get something during the year, but you would not have the amount that we seem, or in my mind, I said, I could be wrong, but it just seems, and the teams that make it to the top, if you looked last year, the 2 teams in the Super Bowl were the healthiest. And that really, I think, that's why you can never predict who's going to win, because you don't know who's going to get hurt.
Yeah. I mean,
go.
No, it's over to you. Go for it.
Yeah, no, I've got one. Anyways, so we have a lot of discussion about draft players and players who like the Jets to draft, talk about it. One of the things that comes up for us sometimes is the strength of competition for a player. So like, an Ahmad Gardner or maybe an Isaiah Likely this year, who aren't playing in those, top 5 divisions. And did you put a lot of weight back into that back in your day?
That was why when I looked at Mark Gastineau's thing way back then, and he was from East Central Oklahoma, you said, well, who is he really playing, even though he was making sacks and doing all that. Now, he did have a year, first he went to junior college, then he had a year at Arizona, and he and Frank Kush didn't see eye to eye. And that's when he went to East Central. But, back in those days, we didn't have all the, as I said, all the knowledge that you can have now. Of course, everybody's transferring from here to there and there. So it is a very, as I said, it's such an inexact science. It is so tough to say, really.
Just going back slightly, and apologies to sort of loop back, we were talking about injuries, and something I wanted to bring up from another Zoom that we've had. We spoke with San Antonio Holmes, and he spoke about the situation with turf in the NFL and how much worse it is to play on than grass. Would you say that in the time that you've been around the NFL and the transition from muddy playing fields through to the high-tech stadiums we have now, that could be a factor, or do you just think it is the fact they're not being hit anymore?
I'd like to know. I would think they would be able to do a study on that. It's very, let's see what's happening. What type of injuries are non-contact injuries happening on that? What are they happening on? Is it the grass? Is it the, not astroturf, or whatever kind of turf? I forget what they call the turf now. But I remember even when I first was growing up, everybody clamored, because of course we played at Shea Stadium, which was all dirt because of the Mets playing there.
Yeah.
And everybody was clamoring for AstroTurf because it seemed like, oh man, this is so great. You got fake grass. It's going to be awesome. Well, they didn't know how hard it was going to be, the different injuries that came from it. Sometimes you don't know until you are out there. So I don't know if it's the guys just have gotten so big for their bodies, and they are, and with their speed, the collisions now are so much greater than they used to be because you're bigger and you're stronger and you're faster. So collisions are bigger, but there seems to be a lot of non-contact injuries. And I would think they would be able to, the NFL said they were looking into that on the ACLs, doing a study, because that's something you could find out, say, okay, where did it happen? Did it happen on grass? Did it happen on this? Did it happen before a game, at practice? You could do a whole study on that in the past few years. And I think it would be important to me, that's a really important thing.
Yeah, I think it's interesting as well, isn't it? Because there are a few teams that still play on grass. We were fortunate enough to be in Chicago a number of years ago, myself and my wife, and we got on the field in Soldier Field, and that was just grass. And then you look at what happened with the San Francisco 49ers when they played us a couple of years ago in MetLife, and they had 2 ACLs on the D-line in one game, and then for the rest of the season didn't barely pick up one. It just seems very strange.
I think they got hurt when they played us, and then the following week they played the Giants, I think. And the same thing, I know. So it makes me wonder. I wish, as I said, I don't have the answer. I wish I did, but it's something I think they could find the answer out if they wanted to. And hopefully they said they are studying at least the ACLs, because that is so often is non-contact.
So as we move forward towards this season, obviously we've had quite an active free agency.
Yes.
I don't think it's went too far away from what we believed. We didn't think there was going to be any really big spending. We knew there'd be some really good key people brought in. Now, I believe that Joe Douglas's view on people and players is very similar to yours. A lot of it's about what they bring to the locker room.
Yes.
So how do you think we've done in free agency so far?
I like it. Yeah, I really do like it so far. I know people are saying, well, we didn't pick up a receiver yet. But, first of all, I wanted the tight ends. To me, the number one thing was to get tight end in that offense. A tight end can be Zach's best friend, just like, as Uzama was saying, I want to be his safety valve, which I loved hearing him say. And I think right now we already are ahead with tight ends just by having those two guys. Laken Tomlinson, I liked him when he came out of Duke, and he's a smart guy. And all the guys, the defensive backs, we needed the safety, we needed the corner. We still need, of course, we still have to find our edge rushers. And I still think we need another linebacker. And I love Michael Carter. I was ecstatic when we drafted him last year. I wanted him so badly, but I would like to have like a Tyler Algier or a bigger back to complement him. I don't want to have, he is not that big. So I do want to have another bigger back also for pass protection as well. But I think overall, I think Joe Douglas has a way of doing things. I love it. He keeps everything close to the vest. Nobody knows what's going to happen. And then all of a sudden it comes out. So if we can have the same kind of draft this year that we had last year, where he's now got everybody, I read where they have the coaches talk to the scouts and give exactly what they need, because there's so many different schemes now. You have to be almost like team specific as to what they run. So that's what you're looking for in drafting a guy. And so it's really good when you have that continuity. And they're telling the scouts, this is what I want you to look for when you're looking for a guy for us. And it may not, the guy for us may not be a guy that another team wants as much. So I think that's where, the difference has come in. There's so many different schemes that people are running. But I love the communication from what I can see between Coach Sala, his coaching staff, and the scouting staff, and Joe Douglas.
Amazing.
On the draft then, and the sort of run up to the draft following free agency, you mentioned a couple of positions there that are going to be huge, and I think we're expecting to probably be the pick at 4 and maybe 10 as well. Mm-hmm. So edge, wide receiver, and cornerback, I think, are all in play at those sort of 2 spots. Mm-hmm. Do you think if one of the top 2 edges drop to 4, it's got to be that edge rusher, and you've got to run up to the podium and get maybe Thib from Oregon? Or if Hutchinson falls, do you go for Hutchinson as well?
Yeah, I'd go for Hutchinson in a second. But
Okay.
the Thibodeau, I like him. I mean, at freshman year, I loved him. Freshman year, I thought, why isn't he graduating right now? And then whether or not they didn't have him playing a certain way, whether he just knew he has it basically made, but I don't know if I want that kind of guy. But then I don't know how he fits in our system. He may be great. And they're going to know that from talking to him more than I do. Yeah. But we know he has the ability. I love Jermaine Johnson. I like Mafe. There's quite a few guys that I would say, and then on linebacker, it's what it is. I was saying today earlier on Twitter and stuff, like this draft doesn't seem to have a bunch of superstars, the first 5 or 6 guys, but it's a very deep draft in the positions that we need, especially the defensive line, edge rushers, because last year wasn't edge rushers. This year it is. So we have to get that. Hopefully we can get the receiver that we want. I love Drake London. I don't know if he's completely healed. I adore him, and I watched him, play at USC. And the only thing is his ankle healed? Like that. If it was like Dak Prescott's, or is it different? I don't know. That's where again physicals come in. But other than that, I know they say, well, he doesn't separate. He's just he played basketball. He's physical. He's agile. He's big. He's got a great attitude. I love him. So, I would go for him to offset our smaller guys. But again, I also have to know his physical. If they say, oh, he's losing a tenth or something, or his ankle isn't healing the way we thought, then I'm not going to go for it. And then linebackers, I want more speed. I know like Quinnen's brother is fast. Quincy, we saw what happens when you have some speed. And I'd like to get another guy that can, I don't know if the guys that were hurt last year, I don't know if Sherwood or, Hamza, how to say his last name, I can't say it right now. But if those guys are able to make that transition remember they were making from safety to linebacker, or if we need to also draft, another linebacker. As I said, I want another running back, and then Sauce Gardner, of course, everybody likes him.
Yeah, I'm really pleased that you said about London, as you probably could tell from my reaction. He's the guy that out of all the top receivers, I think he's the one that offers the most that we need. There's some other guys that are really good. Garrett Wilson's great, Ole's great, but I think London sort of fits what we're missing. I think a trade down and to get London, if you could drop to maybe 15 and pick up a second rounder again, that with the depth that the positions we need, as you say, that would be really good. And on linebacker, the guy from Wyoming, and I'm going to get his name wrong.
The guy from Wyoming,
Mumba, isn't it?
Chad Mumba.
Yeah. I think he'd be, if he's there in the second, and we managed to address, wide receiver and maybe, your edge rusher. I think he's really interesting if he's there at 35. He's a guy that could set your defense for a long time. Yeah,
that's what I said. I don't know if Joe Douglas is going to, if he feels the right guy is there, or is he going to say at the 10th pick, no, I think I'll let me drop down to 15 and pick up another second round. He's a good wheeler and dealer that way.
He is, yeah.
And it is it's a deep draft. That's what I like. I mean, as I said, I'm not going to be heartbroken on some of the guys they don't take because it's not that much different. I don't feel. That's just my opinion.
Yeah.
There is some days when you say, well, some years you just say, oh man, you got to get Myles Garrett. There's just no question about it.
I'm glad we don't need a quarterback this year. That's the one thing I'll say. I'm glad we don't need a quarterback this year. That's the other thing I'll say.
Yes. Yeah, that'll be good.
See, I would be okay if we needed a quarterback because I think Malik Willis is going to be absolutely outstanding.
Do you really?
Yeah, I think everything about his heart, his passion, his knowledge is there. Don't get me wrong, he's not going to click in and start straight away.
No, but
sit him for a year, maybe a year and a half, and I think he's going to take the league by storm. I think he's the better part of Kyler Murray and Lamar Jackson.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
a little bit more heart.
That he definitely has. That's why it's good. I know they were doing the pro day today, for Kenny Pickett. It was coming on this afternoon. But as I said, it's so hard. It's so different now with quarterbacks because as I said, in the old days, you were saying, whether it was Dan Marino or Kenny O'Brien or any of those guys, it was 3-step, 5-step, 7-step, and getting smashed in the mouth. Can you make a pass with people in your face? All that time. Now it's, can you extend the play? Can you throw off platform? But no matter what, your accuracy is it's still the key. And no matter what, accuracy, and also I think leadership. When you see Joe Burrow, I mean, his arm is good. It's not the greatest in the world, but he has such leadership ability. And then I was heartbroken on Sam Darnold. I was a big Sam Darnold fan. I thought after his last few games under Todd Bowles in that year, things were looking pretty good. And then boom, everything just fell apart. So I was completely wrong there.
Yeah, I think Sam caught a lot of us. He did.
No, I mean, I love the kid. I just don't, as I said, that's why it's such a hard, you look back and you look at Josh Rose and you look at all the different guys that have come through, and sometimes it takes them a couple of years. Everybody was down on Mitch Trubisky. Now he's a hot item. So
yeah, I think Adam Gase didn't help Sam's development.
No. That was such a shame. And I love Frank Gore to death, but to have him as your run, at his age and not be developing and that kind of thing. So there were a lot of things that just didn't seem to go well. And again, we get so many injuries. So that's why we got to stay healthy. Thought Mims, I don't understand it. I really can't figure that one out myself either. So
hey, I've got a conspiracy theory on Mims.
Oh, you did?
I think when he was ill last year and the weight loss that he's lost, he's struggling because he's not getting hit in practice. So he doesn't have a working weight anymore. I don't think it's about his ability, because we all know he can run fast and he can catch a ball.
Yes.
It's now about, I think he doesn't have the confidence, because I think in total he dropped nearly 35 pounds in body weight.
Yes.
Which that's a lot to lose.
It is. I mean, we know that, Baylor receivers have a tendency to just be, straight line, fly pattern type of guys, but he showed a lot more, the year before. So I think there's something happened when he got that sick, and I just don't, like you said, it's so hard to know what goes on a lot of times behind closed doors or in the locker room, or sometimes they just don't fit the scheme. We drafted him for a completely different scheme than Mike LaFleur.
Yeah, so. I think Mike LaFleur is still finding out his scheme as well. We'll see a lot different this year, I think.
It's going to be. He has a lot more to work with, and I'm so glad we signed Berrios. I'm always been a big fan of Braxton. From the days at Miami, I watched him, and again, here's a guy with a lot of heart, but he also is just tough as nails.
Yeah.
So,
is there any players late on in the draft from any from the Senior Bowl teams? Because I think one of our members has picked 13 players from the Senior Bowl that he wants. Now, obviously, we can't get 13 of them.
No.
I mean, one of the main ones that keeps popping up is Jeremy Ruckett from
the tight end,
Ohio.
Ohio State, yeah. I don't know if he'll be there, when we want. But I'm a big Greg Dulcich fan from UCLA, because right now we have two big guys, one more of a blocker than the other. And Dulcich will give us a little bit more playing room speed wise and doing different things. But Ruckert, as I said, I do think he'll have a better pro career because Ohio State, where I went, does not use tight ends. So I think he definitely will. I'm sure, and be a good blocker. There's a lot of tight ends this year. So that's another thing. And I do think we should draft a tight end, even though we have two, because again, whether it's injuries, whether it's, you just never have it. You never have enough nowadays.
Our one of our admins that unfortunately couldn't make it today would murder me if I didn't ask this question, as you mentioned tight ends. What's your thoughts on Kenny Boa?
A guy that looks like he should put everything together, but hasn't. You know, even when he was in college, you just expected more. Don't know why. I thought he would, and he had a big opportunity last year to step forward because we really didn't have a tight end. So if he didn't step forward when we didn't have a tight end, it's really going to make it hard on him now. I don't know why. Some guys have ability, but there's something missing.
Yeah, I wasn't really sold on Greg at the combine, but I don't watch very much UCLA either. I avoid like California teams really. I don't know why. It's just every time I seem to watch them and really love a player, they bite me, so I just avoid them. It's an interesting one because as we look at it, we were all very much quite happy with Zach.
Yeah.
I thought it was a great pick, and I thought his development this year was very good. How are you feeling on that? Because obviously this is the first quarterback you haven't seen his first year camp.
Yeah, and of course, as I told you, I was a Sam Darnold fan from the time he was drafted, and watching him at USC and in his pro day in the pouring rain and this and that. So I had to kind of switch my thing. But Zach, only thing I worry about with Zach, I mean, he's got the arm, got the ability. I just want him to put on a couple of pounds, get a little bit stronger, because I do worry about injury. You know, people, it's so funny. Everybody thinks he's like 5'10". He's just over 6'2". People keep thinking they always try to compare him like Johnny Manziel. Wait a minute. No, he's not. He's 6'2". He doesn't look it, but he needs to be a little more in his body. I think this year will be if he's as much of a film junkie and a hard worker as they say, I think it's going to be really interesting. The other part is everybody made such a fuss over him in his pro day, right? And what was the fuss? Because he threw that off platform and he threw that ball a mile, right? Now he comes to the pros and the Jets have him, which I understand. You have to still be able to throw from the pocket. And they have him throwing from the pocket and throwing from the pocket. All during training camp, he was in the pocket. They didn't even have him rolling out. And they just have him doing that. But it's still, when you're young, you still revert to what you feel the most comfortable doing. And so I don't like it thinking of it as hero ball. I think what I think it is something that he happens to have confidence in about himself. We all have some things that we're better at than others. So when push comes to shove, our bodies and our minds revert back to what we thought we were the best at, which is where he rolls out and bombs away. But so that, I think it was a little bit harder for him to contain that. And it's like, you can see that with a lot of the quarterbacks that are coming out of college now, to come back, to stay in the pocket and throw and be able to throw and not, because these defenses figure out, I don't care how fast you are, these defenses, if they're disciplined and contain you, you can see what they do to a Kyler Murray and stuff like that. You can see how they can contain those people.
I think the play against Tennessee was one of the things that really showed what Zach was about when it comes to getting outside the pocket, when he rolled out and sort of just beckoned to Corey Davis just to keep running, just go, and I'll find you.
And that one kind of, again, just like his pro day, that set everybody off to see that this could happen every play. And they say he felt confident wherever all of us, whenever we feel confident in something, we go back to it, I think. And that's where he felt like, man, this is what I did. BYU, this is what I did in high school.
Yeah.
And that's where I feel good. And it was a thing of beauty. And then we expected it on every play. So I think it just takes a while. This year will be a very important year for him.
absolutely.
Make it or break it, really. And
Yeah.
kind of a different question, but obviously we've been had quite a bad record the past couple of years, and a few head coaches. But how do you see the Jets organization now, and do you believe in this rebuild and Joe Douglas?
Oh, I've been through a lot of rebuild. Even when I was at the Jets in the 70s, our best record was 500. We had 4 wins. And so we won the Super Bowl in 69, and then the next year we made it to the playoffs. But then when I was there from 74 through 81, we were building. And then after that, when Walt Michaels took over and slowly built it. But I've been through so many, rebuilds. Being a Jet fan, that's just kind of normal. But we did have, I think we all tend to forget from 1998 to 2011, Jets went to the playoffs 7 years. They went, they had the year with AFC Championship with Parcells. They had 2 with Rex. They went to the playoffs 3 times with Chad Pennington. Every time Chad Pennington was healthy, he took us to the playoffs. But we had a really good team surrounding those guys as well. But people seem to forget during those years. It's been the last 10 years that have been. And if we had won in 2015, if we just beat Buffalo, everything would be changed. And we go up to Buffalo, and Rex wanted to beat us. And Fitzpatrick has a terrible game. And I felt so bad for Coach Bowles because I really respect him and like him a lot. And that just changed our history. So I think we're headed in the right direction. I like the kind of guys they're bringing in. I think it's great that we have a general manager and head coach that are working together. So I see some really good stuff.
Amazing.
Thank you.
When we get people on, Connie, we always like to get them to send a message to fans. We kind of have it where, that normally we're always at a really bad time when we get people on. And it's that thing of, keep the faith. So if you could put a message out to the UK fans and the European fans, what would be your message of hope about the New York Jets?
Okay, to all those fans overseas and everywhere else, first of all, I want to thank you very much for being a New York Jets fan, for being a loyal fan, and for choosing the Jets as your team. And hopefully we're going to give you some joy coming up. Just stay with us. This world jumps off the ship very fast and goes to another team as soon as they win. But the Jets have a special brand of fan everywhere. Very, very loyal, really cares about the team. We're all connected. If this team ever started to win, it would be unbelievable, from Twitter to everything else on all these Zooms and YouTube, you name it. So I just said, stay with it. I think we're building the right way. It's going to be tough in the AFC because there's so many quarterbacks now. But the only thing I got to say right now, but hopefully they'll keep beating each other. But so that's going to be, we really will have to rise to the occasion this year. I don't expect miracles this year. I really don't. Looking at our schedule, I'm looking at 6 to 7 wins, but playing tough competitive football, not and good defense. Seeing improvement with Zach. Once you get that kind of feeling that you're progressing to the next year. But I just want to say thank you for being a Jet fan and just to stay with us. And I just think it's awesome that you care about the Jets.
Thank you. So do you have any questions for us at all? Because it's how
did you start being a Jet fan?
Mine, I came over to New York in 1999 for work experience with school. Mm-hmm. And did hospitality and leisure and went to a Jets training facility and saw the team practicing, saw Curtis Martin go through a gauntlet, and I was hooked. Isn't that amazing? So that was 1999, you said, right? So yep. That was when they were still at Hofstra. Yep. Okay, yes. Yeah, it was great. And then Curtis Martin, of course, was a wonderful class act, great Jet. Yeah, that's neat. How about the other guys? How did you guys become Jet fans?
Mine was following Revis, really. I started watching football, saw Darrell play, watched him play in college and things, and then the Jets drafted him, so started watching the Jets, and that was it. You know, Revis was on the Jets, I was on the Jets. So I experienced, well, I suppose some of my earliest years with the Jets was experiencing Mark Sanchez and the highs of Mark Sanchez. So that was it. Then I was hooked and away to go.
Isn't that great? So Revis was the best. I've never seen a shutdown corner like him. I don't think there'll ever be one like him again. He was really amazing. You know, I really appreciated what he was. I mean, Rex didn't have to worry about a whole half of the field with Revis there.
That knee injury with Revis changed what could have been a very different story. If he doesn't blow that knee out, I think we re-sign him, and I think we just carry on paying the best corner in the game.
I know. I agree. But I could see how those were good years. They really were. They were fun. We had a lot of good players on those teams. When you go back and look at those rosters, oh my goodness gracious! And the offensive line and
offensive line, defensive line.
I would think Darrell is in the Hall of Fame this summer.
Yeah, and I do.
Yeah, he should be a first ballot, I think. But you know, that's my opinion. And now we got his cousin on our team, so we're really in good shape.
Yeah. Wasn't that an amazing picture when that came out?
Isn't that cool that he was there on draft day and here he is? I think it's really, I like that. It's kind of a good omen.
And James, what
James,
was
how
your
about
story?
So kind of probably similar time, around about 2008, 2009. A lot of kids at my school started getting into NFL, and we would play it on the school field and whatnot. And everyone kind of went to the Patriots because they were, like, say, the Man United. Just they were the best team and they were always winning. And I'm a Wolves fan, which are a bit better now, but they weren't good for a very long time. And that underdog mentality of the Jets and the fact that they were just getting good and like giving it back to the Patriots, I really liked them. Just kind of with the underdogs.
You just never know how somebody's. Yeah, how is it over like where you are? Are people really getting into football, into the NFL?
Yeah, massively. It's growing huge.
Is it really growing?
Yeah.
Like we have obviously the international series as well.
Yeah.
Which is anywhere between 2 and 4 games every year.
Yes.
And they sell out every game.
Yeah.
Even when it's like the Jaguars versus somebody even worse.
The Jaguars are over there a lot. That's right.
So we've collectively seen a lot of teams.
Yeah.
And then we were fortunate to have a really good time last year with the Jets when they were in London.
Did you? Oh, that's so good.
So we had Nick Mangold do
that's right. I remember that now. Yeah.
A private breakfast party type thing where we were having tequila at 10 in the morning, which was amazing. And then he did a talk on the afternoon the night before in the Jets pub. We all met Christopher Johnson.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, right.
He's a nice guy.
Yeah, it was still through COVID, and we were told that we wouldn't have any access to any of the players or any of the members. And Christopher just walked in, went to the bar, got a drink, and then came and stood with the fans.
He's very much with people. He's really a people person. That's so awesome. Isn't that neat? So, well, hopefully it'll happen again for you soon. It looks like it, right?
Yeah, well, we're all heading over to New York later on this year. At the moment, I think there's about 35 of us.
Awesome.
So it's going to be November week 1 or 2 or December week 1, I think.
It's so great that if life is starting to get a little bit more normal. I said when I went down to the Senior Bowl, my Hula Bowl was over here in Orlando, and there was 150 scouts and everything, and it just was so nice to have. You can see people's smiles and everybody talking, and it felt so good after the past 2 years.
Yeah. Can I ask one final question just before you go, Connie? Sorry to be a pain.
Sure.
Obviously, you mentioned him earlier. He's synonymous with the franchise for many, many reasons. What was Joe really like? Is he like what was written up and Broadway Joe? And was it quite like he was, or what was his situation?
When he first came, and he was big, 427,000. That was unheard of now compared to 230 million, but 427,000 and a car. But on top of that, Joe had the charisma. Sonny Werblin saw that. He had just this charisma. And he still does to this day, even at his age. When he walks in a room in New York up there, the whole room just explodes. And so when he came, it was like the Beatles. Everywhere we went, there were just thousands of people at the hotel. Everybody wanted to, the guys wanted to be Joe and the girls wanted to date Joe. But he was really great with the kids. I worked when I was at the Jets. He was there 74, 75, and 70, and it was great. I've known him since I was 13. He's just been awesome guy. He just opened a restaurant down in Jupiter in Florida, near where he lives and stuff. And he's just and he's got his daughter and grandkids, but he's just a wonderful, always had time for kids. But Joe's the best thing nowadays when we all get together. They had the 50th reunion of the Super Bowl team, and then we had a couple of other things. And when Joe comes, when he talks to you, he has a way of each person that he speaks with. He makes you feel like you're the only person in the world, and he's got to speak to 4 trillion people, and then he goes on to the next person, talks to them. He's gifted in that respect. He had the most amazing, best release I've ever seen of football. Marino came close, but I think Joe was the quickest release. He played on 2 bum knees. He was a great baseball player in high school, great basketball player in high school, and a great athlete overall until he, got the injury. But yes, I could go on about Joe forever. He's a great guy and a great friend.
Oh, amazing.
Thanks.
Well, thank you for coming on, Connie. And thanks everybody for watching. We will have another show coming up very soon. So, cheers.
My pleasure. Thank you very much for having me on. I appreciate it. So nice talking with all you guys.
Amazing.
Been great.